Well, one more day. I think we should all be grateful for the day that we have. And if we wake up tomorrow, we should be grateful for that one too. My experiences, I hope help you guys understand how to approach things. Not that I'm always right, but my experience is hopefully keeps you from having to do all the things that I did to know the things that I know. Sort of like what you do when you help a friend. That's what I hope to do, help my friend. So when it came to jacking up homes, let's start off with the mobile home. Probably was the first job that I did when I came from Florida to here. My dad goes, "Hey, you want to come with me? I'm working with your uncle. We're putting a double wide mobile home together." It's like, sure. And trying to think. I'm pretty sure that's the first time I've actually been involved with putting any kind of double wide together. And so I would probably be 30, 34, 35, something like that. 30, 33, anyway. I'd been a field superintendent before that. My marriage had failed, and I was just coming to Arkansas to get away from everything and start over. My boss wanted me to come back and pay for my going to see somebody to talk it all out. He'd pay for my ring, whatever. Don't leave, but I still did it because I felt like I wouldn't be able to handle it mentally, deal with the woman who had cheated on me. So here I am, starting over, and guess what? I'm doing something I haven't done before. And so we pull up on the job, and it's a double wide on the side of a hill, pretty good size hill, short one. And what they're doing is old school. So you leave the axles on, and you don't have rollers. You just use jacks, plywood, and plastic. How do you do that? Well, the old school way of doing it was take a long level and put it on the floor of the mobile home, set the uphill side, the side that's closest to the low side, the lowest side to the hillside, or the uphill side. And you set that level. Okay, when you get it all set up, you might, most of the time they didn't, but you might anchor it down so it won't go nowhere, or you might chain it to a tree close by, although a lot of times they don't do that. It's a good idea. And or you tie it to a telephone pole, something, because you want to encourage that thing not to go downhill when you pull the other half up to it, which is what you have to do. So now, generally the mover will put the homes within 3-4 feet, sometimes 5-6 feet apart. And you have to pull the gift wrapping, which is not really gift wrapping, it's a plastic and things like that, wood to hold the plastic, that open area between the two, you pull all that off, so that when you put the two together, there's nothing holding them apart. So you have to kind of surreal look to it, because you're looking in somebody's house that's been split in half. It looks like you stepped into an earthquake or something. Anyway, the other half, the first half, you might have already pulled the axles off so that you could get low enough, which is a good idea to get it down to, I think the minimum that they allow in Arkansas, and probably anywhere else, Arkansas Mobile Home Association, is the half pad, the block pad, and then one block high and one 2x4 or 2x8 high. So you're 1.5 inches plus 8 and plus 4. That's the lowest they want you to go. So that would be your lowest point. After that, everything's higher, particularly the downhill side, which is the side you're going to pull up. All right, so I'm there, and they got it pretty close. They got it within 2 feet, and they've been struggling because they did the old school. So they're using rollers. They got that half sitting on plywood, and then 6 mil plastic between the 8-foot plywood with the wheels. 3 axles are sitting on each side. So you got a sandwich of plywood, 6 mil plastic, and then plywood again, all 3/4. On both sides, both sets of sides of that mobile home. And now you're taking winches and hand winching them up. Okay. You're counting on those winches to hold all that weight. And a single wide generally can be about 35,000 to 45,000, depending if it has sheetrock in it or paneling, or if it has masonite siding or vinyl siding. It can change quite a lot. So this is a smaller one, so it's like 30,000 pounds, I would guess. And there's no furniture in it, like a lot of times people want you to move furniture with it. Hey, this house is certainly not designed with that much more weight, but and particularly where its setting is not necessarily designed at all to do anything like that. So there's no furniture in this at this point, and I walk in. What do you want me to do? Well, you run this winch, and we'll run the one in the middle, and we'll have somebody else run the other side. Well, where the axles are is where the most weight is, because those axles are sitting on plywood, which is sitting on the multiple layered 6 mil plastic, which comes out in a roll and you unfold it. So it's made to just literally slide on that plastic. So we start winching, everybody's winching. If one gets too far ahead because it's easier, then we stop and let the other catch up. And here we are, we're doing that. And it's pretty tense. We have 4 or 5 people there, and I'm winching slowly. And these are little tiny winches. These are not big winches. Thin cables. And I haven't been there even 20 minutes. And here I'm winching, and the winch cable breaks. And it not only breaks, now the thing that the other 2 catch it, but it slides down about 3 or 4 inches, 6 inches away from me. And in the doing of breaking that act, that cable came and hit me in the cheek, right on the cheekbone. And it cut me big time. I mean, I'm bleeding. So now I'm really kind of irritated. And I should have taken it as a learning experience, but at the time I was like, man, I'm not only am I risking my life, I just got hurt. Because somebody's not spending money on better winches, bigger winches than that. I was like, man, so I step out and, everybody's like, are you okay? I said, no, I'm getting out, I'm bleeding, so just let me be. So everybody's wanting to see what's going on. I've got blood pouring out of my fingers. This is a great way to start leveling houses. So I'm mad. I was like, you guys need to stop what you're doing and go get a better winch. We can't use that winch anymore. I mean, my uncle was actually talking about, well, can we just tie a knot in and keep on going? It's like, no, you need to get a bigger winch. This is ridiculous. So anyway, we winched that, get it pushed up close, and then you go up and you winch it up some more. So as you go up, you have to build up material underneath those wheels because you're counting on the wheels. And mind you, that house is tilted. So you're pulling up the bottoms, the marriage wall together on the bottom, and then you jack up slowly and set your piers and bring it up where the tops touch. So we did that. And my uncle was a very experienced guy. He well knew what to do. Enough so that you kind of get reckless and used to the risk. I wasn't used to it. That was frightening. It was a very tough situation to go back into the house with the new winch or two and continue to work underneath that house with me having no experience what's going to hit me in the face next or fall down on me anyway. That's my first introduction to jacking up a mobile home. Is that what I think that most people will go through? I think you're going to put that on the laptop. No. Nor should you expect that. What I suggest is that if you are careful and take your time, not be in a hurry, get the right tools. There's some videos out there, particularly mine, I guess, on how to jack up a mobile home. So what would be different is you have to spend extra little bit of money and buy the heavier winches and just do it a little at a time and then chain everything off. So like if that house is not anchored, which you're going to have to do at some point, then go ahead and tie it off to a tree or such. Then you don't have to worry so much. And then keep your jacks level and keep maintaining the distance between the blocks that you're building up underneath every no more than 8 feet. That's the rule. You don't want to be more than 8 feet. So I've had some people ask, well, why do you use wedges at all? I mean, just go up a little bit more. You can, but whenever that big heavy building is coming down fast, you want to have as little distance as possible because you don't need to get any kinetic energy pushing down any faster because it's going further. So try to keep everything wedged up as tight as you can as you go. Go slow and easy. There's no need to be getting in a hurry. Even if there's a storm coming, don't get in a hurry. Take your time, do it right. The biggest thing when it comes to jacking up a mobile home or a house is keep your jack level. Now, how do you do that? Well, first of all, you don't usually, unless you're jacking up on a rock or concrete, you don't set that steel jack on dirt because there's not enough width on the bottom of that jack to keep it from sinking fast because of that 12-ton if you have a small jack, 20-ton if you have a large jack, and they actually make bigger jacks than that, but they're pretty hard. And a lot of the professional movers and house relevelers, they use airbags. There's a whole other thing. Again, those airbags, you don't want them to sit directly on the ground because they can puncture with whatever stop or rock, possible, even as thick as they are. So what you want is that to be sitting on some kind of wood platform so that it's set level, and therefore the jack, the airbag does not tilt. Again, just like the jack. You don't want it to tilt with the direction. Now, I've often told the guys that were working for me back in the day, I said, I think with my dad and his business, I had 2 guys working for me. We set like 100 something double wides and 40 single wides, and I think it was 3 triple wides in a little over a year, right out of a year, something like that. So I got a crash course in 1 year on how to do it, and that's over in the mountainous part of northwest Arkansas, Harrison area, all the way over the mountain home, where people tell you instructions, hey, when you get to the black and white cow group, turn left. Doesn't matter. The cows want to move. Everybody's used to cows being in that field. It's second. When you come to Bear Creek, you've gone too far, turn around and go back to the second house and back from Bear Creek. Okay, so those are the kind of instructions we're giving for GPS. And probably these places didn't have 911 addresses, so GPS wouldn't get you there. It just gets you close. And a lot of those places didn't have phone reception either. Now, what I told those guys is I took, say, like, this would be a cracker box. I used to keep a small cracker box in the truck, crew cab truck. And quite a bit bigger than this. It's like, look, if you set your jack crooked, and there's two other jacks set up, and one pushes that jack, it twists the other jack, so it literally will make that house spin easier because we're all up clear of the piers. If you have a problem with your jack, over and over, I'm going to tell you, set that jack and say, hey, stop. And then we'll all ease down and set onto the piers that we built up as we went up. And we'll redig in your jack, and you put wood in large enough, and a lot of times you can use like 2x12s, 4 foot long, 3 foot long. A lot of times what we used then was 6x6s that were about 3 foot long. Stacks of them. And if that mud started settling in, or the dirt started settling in more on one side or the other, say to the front or to the back or to one side or the other, you need to stop, reset your jack. So that's something that we did. And of course, I didn't deal with a 6 foot level on the floor because I'm well aware of floors inside of a house or a mobile home. They're not necessarily flat anyway. So what you want to do on a mobile home is you want to level the frame. And you can adjust the floor if it's swelled up or just not fastened properly or something like that because this house has been out of level and it makes boards pop up. So we would do that and we say, hold it, set your jack, yell it out. You know, if you're working by yourself, and you can easily do it, you just need to be very careful, very slow and methodical. Do a little at a time, set all your piers. And as you're going up, you're setting all your piers, and when somebody runs out of their jack, which is about 7.5 inches of height on a 20-ton jack, it's about 7.5 inches. Everybody says, okay, I'm at the end of my jack, I'm done. And so everybody goes ahead and says, well, I can go a little further, but you vocalize and guess at what you can do. And so it takes a constant vigilance, and that you don't realize until you get out from underneath the house, or when you're done with that house, how much actual work and it is on your mind, and the tension it puts on you until you get out from under the house done. It's stressful. And it should be, because the responsibility is massive. So I've also been involved with house moving, and they build with a lot of piers that are what is that called? Dunnage. So you take like 6 foot, maybe even 6 foot, 8 foot long 6x6s and railroad ties or whatever. You want all that material to be even, and you build this pyramid sort of arrangement where you start out with 6 foot by 6 foot, and then you lap one on top of the other. So you go this way, and then you go this way, and then you go this way, and then you go this way. As you're going up, you're getting smaller, a little bit smaller. So you start out 6, you end up with 3, and then you might, at that point, it's like, hey, we're going to go a little bit more, so you end up putting those 6x6s all the way across flat, and then you put your jack in the center of it, and you can jack up from there. And you're jacking onto the house nut. Generally, what you're doing is you're jacking up on a steel beam that slid. It's been welded made for it. It's stiffened up with, everything thought out. That you can take a cable on it and drag that steel beam through with either a winch from a truck or the truck itself, or just regular winches. Occasionally you might do it by hand, but those beams are heavy, so not likely. You can put pipes down and slide them better. They often use what they call soap boards, the old school guys. And soap boards, you take a piece of wood and just rub that soap into it, and that grease that soap is made out of gets pounded into that board, and then you do the same with the board that's going to be on it, and that's what you call your soap boards. Now you can put a piece of steel beam on a soap board, and you can slide that house over, and then you put steel in between those beams. You're going to have 2 beams, one on each side of the house, and you're going to be thoughtful as to where you put them. It really takes a lot of forethought, planning. And you're going to stiffen them up so that when you pull that house and raise that house, those beams don't roll over one side or the other. They don't slide in one way or the other, just because it's all held together in the beams and chained together. So it's moving a house on the road. You're most likely going to have. I don't know of any state where you're not going to have to get a permit, because that house is going to generally cover both sides of the road, and you're going to be dodging mailboxes. You're going to be, before you even go down the road, even if you didn't have a permit, you're going to need to know the height of that house and maybe attach it to a truck beforehand, go down the whole route to make sure that you're not hitting telephone lines, or that you're not hitting electric lines or somebody else's house. All those things. And curves, you're not turning a 60-foot house or a 45-foot house by 32-foot wide down the road just like you do a car. It's quite the ordeal. And your distance from the back axle to the end of the house can be quite distant. So when you turn a sharp corner, that house might be swinging out 15 feet. So it's quite an ordeal to jack up a house that's that big. To get that house up, you're paying attention to all the noises, as you do with a mobile home, cracks and pops, and some of them you get familiar with. And you're like, oh, okay, I know that one. It's not that big a deal. Sometimes I've gotten to the point where I actually know the sound of a breaking block. When a block breaks, a concrete block will break, and it makes a particular thud. And you know it's a broken block. It's like everybody will stop and find out where that block is. We're going to have to go and pull that block out, put another one in, and find out why that one broke. Generally, it's like a small rock or something like that that got in between. So now when you're jacking a house, you don't ever put your steel jack directly to that block, because steel to concrete block, the block is going to lose. It's going to break. It's going to break when you're generally not ready for it. So what you do is you put wood in between that block and that steel jack. At least 2 by, I would say. Sometimes you can get away with less, but I wouldn't recommend it. And if you want to use blocks, which is not something you want to put a lot of weight on, but you can do it, is you take wood on the ground, and then block, and then wood on top of that block, another block, and then put wood, block, wood, block, wood, block, and then when you put your jack on it, you set on top of the wood. And that will allow you to get a lot of jacking area or height in a lot of hurry. So you want to be cautious again, because if you're not careful, that block could tilt the higher you get, whatever. That's why those guys that are jacking up houses use all that gunnish and build it into a permanent, like a pyramid shape, going into the middle, because that way they don't generally have that moving around and wobbling around like we're talking with a mobile home. I ran into one of the guys that I really respect. He's a good driver and a good mover of mobile homes and houses. But he used to tell me that in Oklahoma, they pulled a permit and they moved that double wide all together. They didn't take it apart and split it up. They just went down the road. Well, in Oklahoma, you got wide open roads, and all you got to do is dodge a mailbox, drive off the ditch a little bit, and go around it. You can literally kind of swerve the vehicle around that big house that was a vehicle. So he knew what he was doing. So being around people like that, you pick up things. And so I've got a crash course in jacking up houses. I'm quite often puzzled by some of the thoughts that people have about jacking up houses. When you have any kind of house on the side of a hill, it wants to go down the hill. There's a mountain in Fayetteville, Arkansas, just south of here. It's called Mount Sequoia. And there's a lot of houses, really pretty houses on the side of that hill. And there's a lot of houses all around Fayetteville. But that one house, that one mountain, the house on it, those houses all try to come down the hill. And there was releveling companies coming up your ears around there in that area, used to working on that mountain. And I think the Atlas Pier and a couple others, they're the same company now. They're all bought out by one, but they can give you 3 estimates if that's what you need, because they have 2 separate company names. And there are individual companies all owned by the same company. And then there's Johnson Brothers. There's a number of really good movers. That work early on was amazing to me, how much money those guys made. I had no idea how much. And I know why. Because they have a lot of risk. If that house falls apart, people sue you. But more importantly, that house could fall on you. There are stories of houses being jacked up and the house was not able to handle the stress of it all. And it just, the walls pop out and blow, they call the house blowing up. It just blows out and the roof comes down and everything comes down on you. I've never had it happen to me. I've not dropped the house, but I have went to work on them where they have, and I've had it happen several times. Right. Well, yeah, I put a lot of fears, and I'm really careful because I'm holding somebody's future in my limited skill hands, and I don't know if I really worry about it falling on me, because if I think the house is not going to move or go up, I'm not generally going to mess with it. That doesn't happen often, unless the house is really rotted. And generally, people, when they hear the price of even me, which I'm way cheaper than other house movers and such, and so like where they would charge $40,000, I might be at $6,000 or $7,000, and of course, so I try to be careful about what I do, and I try to be mindful of these people's dreams to come true. It's my job to help them have a better life, not to make it worse, or to be callous about it. If I can't, this is a piece of junk house, I can't be moved. And I did go to a lot of trouble putting in extra piers. And then whenever you move a house, you generally brace up a smaller house or a flimsy house on the inside. We moved a 2-story place. It had actually been built on the Corps of Engineers property that, from one corner to the other diagonally. So it had to be moved about 20 feet to put it where these people wanted it. They bought it on the premise that I would do the work. They literally interviewed me. What would you do to work before they bought the house? So I told them that I would do it for a certain amount. But I went in there on the premise that house might try to collapse, because it didn't have a bathroom in the downstairs, and it was wide open. So I just put a whole bunch of braces in. I want to give credit to my best friend, which I would have done anyway. But he said, "Hey, you put all the braces, all the X braces you can, get them all braced up, and there's no such thing as doing too much." When I got through upstairs and downstairs, it was like a port. He was amazed to go through it. But I didn't want the house to fall apart, and then everything was put together with screws, so I could take the screws right back out and go on. We moved that house. She wanted to save a tree about that big, and she felt it was something special. Yeah. So we had to go around a tree and put it further up around it. So quite the ordeal. Actually did that with all the things that I had. I didn't have to borrow anything. We moved that house and put it back up. Hooked up the electricity, hooked up the sewer and the water. They had they caught rainwater and such as that. And they're all back up. So what I suggest is that you be very, very careful. And there's no such thing as asking stupid questions. You guys can find somebody as a resource and say, hey, what do I do if I have to do this or do that? You can do that. You don't have to go and put yourself at risk if you don't feel good about it. Call somebody up and or just text me or call me, whatever. If I'm within range, I'll be happy to answer a question. But be safe. Keep your jack level. Be careful to wedge up as you go up. And houses are a slightly different animal. Probably the most dangerous to deal with jacking up and releveling is a single wide mobile home. And I know it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because it's smaller than a double wide. But one half of a double wide keeps the other half from going crazy. Although I've had one move on me, that's where I keep harping on hooking on chains, and because we were doing a relevel and a double wide on a really steep hill. We were going up and said, hold it, put it all down. And it was me and a boy named James. We put it down, and a couple was there talking away. Nobody noticed but me. We moved like 6 inches over. And it gives me, makes the hair on the back of my neck go up and down. So, I had to get a lot of chains because they cut all the trees away from the house. They didn't want a tree to hit their house. So I had to stretch out chains. I had to go get more chains. It took quite an ordeal to get that house. It was probably 5 blocks high on the highest point. On the lowest point, they had it lower than 8 inches. To get that house, it was a really steep hill. But we got it back, put everything the way it should be. And it ended up being a real nice situation. But what I wanted to say was, use a water level now. You can use lasers, but lasers don't tend to be able to see. You can have a lot of things in your way to not be able to get. There's a lot of places that laser will allow for. So if you use a water level, you can go around up here into a dark area where the insulation's hanging down or whatever. That water level will allow you to get there. As long as you don't let water out of it, it stays the same. You used to level whole rooms that way. Around the corner into bathrooms and so on and so on. So I have a video on making a water level. I've got videos showing me how I use a water level. And you can use a water level for leveling the ground, setting up here, concrete slabs, gravel. You won't have to because you can use lasers for that generally if you can find one that you can see in the daylight, or you can use surveying instruments. It's really important again with leveling that you get that surveying instrument level. Very, very, very level. So you want to be careful that you're level when you're setting up your jacks and your water levels. You want to make sure you get all the bubbles out of it. You want to make sure that you check and do the same thing all around. Keep your house level. And you'll find that the closer you are to getting to level, the lighter the jack is, the less weight it has on it. Because the house wants to go to that point. It's certainly something you could get used to. You're like, oh, I'm getting close because we're getting close to level. One of the things that kind of surprises me is people tell other people that you can't put additions on to a mobile home because a mobile home will not be able to handle it. It will cause it to, the porch or the addition will pull that mobile home down. Well, I will tell you this. Mobile homes themselves need to be re-leveled from time to time. But what you do with an addition or a deck is you have it where you can re-level that deck whenever it starts pulling, let's say it does, that mobile home down, causing some issue. It's kind of an unusual thing in that people will say, my dad built a deck that was it sat for 20 years and never moved. And he didn't have it attached to the house. He didn't need to. I was like, wow, that's great. And you can build a deck that doesn't pull down a mobile home if it was connected to it. Or then they go, oh, well, no, the mobile home can move up and down, and that'll be what the problem is. I suggest to you that stick-built homes, not put on concrete, have been added onto for as long as they have been built. Log cabins have been added onto, and mobile homes can be added onto also. You can re-level whatever it is that you're putting in there, and you can bring it to where it doesn't cause a strain on the mobile home, and you can bring that mobile home back to where it was when it was level and you connected that porch to it or that addition to it. Same with houses. Invariably, the highest side of the side is going to settle. It's just what happens. It's the side that's further down the high side of the hill, and you've got more piers. You're like, why this side? Why wouldn't it do the low side? Because it's just what it is. It's trying to go downhill. We all try to go downhill. We all fight gravity. So I don't have the same viewpoint that a lot of people do who say you can't put an addition onto a mobile home, or I have no. By no means that viewpoint. And I have no point of reference to say that I'm wrong. And I guess if I live to be another 20 years further down the road, maybe I'll have something different to say, but 30-something years into it, I don't have anything to say about it. Change my mind on that. Is this a mobile home or a home? A home? Yeah. There's been a number of, I don't know how many videos I have, but I do have a video of jacking up houses. Now, houses can be multi-level. On the underneath of them, they may not be all the same height underneath, depending on the age of the house. I actually worked on a house not long ago. Yeah, they had a pretty recent video working on that house. It was a log cabin. We jacked it up. So yes, there is. That one's unique. I don't know that you're going to get too many other places where you're going to jack up a house that was made in the 1800s. And it was in sad shape. It had been ate away by termites and rotted away by water because they ran an air conditioner on the front porch. But we did get it up, and it was pretty close. It had multiple levels, additions added onto it, and a lot of it was done with rocks when I was there. Almost all of it was done with rocks, and we changed it all to blocks. So yes, I do have videos of that. And it is not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be, the thing about it is, when you go into it, you think it's going to be harder than it actually is. But it's still hard to jack up a house. You want to be careful. I jacked up a couple of two-story houses, Victorian house area. Those houses might never have been truly level underneath the house. So when you jack it up, or it might not have been for 100 years. So when you jack it up, it starts busting out windows, breaking glass. Yeah, that's kind of normal. That house is not really. It's not the drywall, the plaster, things like that. that's going to be, it's kind of normal. You're going to get damage. There's no such thing as being able to do something on a big house without causing some kind of little bit of, like drywall crush, a window crack in the corner, or I've even had whole windows break. Not very much, but I've actually fixed a lot of windows where they did do it. But you should know, depending on how much you're moving up, you should know, like gas lines are very exceptionally important to me, because I don't want to be underneath no house that has busted gas line and don't know where to shut it off. Water lines are very important after that. Water lines and sewer lines and things like that, they can all be repaired, but you need to know where to shut them off at if you're going to move that house that much. So before you move in this house, make sure you know where all the gas is at. Usually I would turn the gas off, because just a little bit of movement, all of a sudden the connection is not good. Same with water. You should expect those things that have been sitting for tens of years, or had some traumatic thing happen to it and it caused it to move, you're going to have some repairs. You should not be so optimistic as to think that you will have no repairs. Is it possible? Yes. Has it been done? Yes. How many times? Your odds are not good that you're not going to have any damage in the inside of the house. Sometimes the doors on the additions of those houses have been put in while the house was out of level. Now you're leveling it out and the doors won't fit. They won't even open. You end up having to cut doors. Oh yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, and then, so my ghost will be out there showing you guys what I've learned and what I'm doing, sharing. And wouldn't it be a great place for everybody to work together? It's not going to happen. I think the more we work with each other, the better we're going to be. And I prefer it. So I'm sharing with you guys what I learned. And I didn't set out doing these videos with the intention of making a bunch of money. What it was is I had outlived a lot of my customers. So when I was in my 30s, the customers were in their 40s, 60s, 70s, some of them, and now they're gone. So I had to find a way to show other people that I actually knew what I was doing. I wasn't faking it until I made it. So if I made a video, I was like, hey, this is only like 3 or 4 years ago. If I made a video, I was like, I could say, hey, you can go to my YouTube channel. You can actually see me do it. You don't have to take my word for it. And that's what it was. A resume for me. The fact that I got so much response from it, from people across the nation, we're not getting a ton of views. We're getting a lot. For me, I was surprised. I didn't expect that much. And now I'm like, well, I can kind of be a little more intentional about it. So that's what I'm doing. What you're seeing is somebody who is literally doing the work. I'm not, at this point, I'm not setting it up to make a video. I'm showing you when I'm doing it. Might have to stop a little bit, might have to get permission from the customer. They might not want me to do it. They might not want to be their house in the video. It makes them uncomfortable. And I certainly can't charge them for the time that it takes me to do that. So, you're dealing with somebody who's actually doing work for the customer. Sometimes in my house, you're dealing with somebody that's not haughty. You're dealing with somebody that's perfectly willing to learn. And occasionally, you learn from the simplest of people just because they ask a question. I think in Mexico, when we had my dad had business in Mexico, there was a saying down there that says, always listen, because sometimes the donkey plays the violin. You always listen. So you need to keep humble and keep learning. And that keeps my mind alert. And I have no intention of retiring. I don't have a retirement plan. and I probably won't work until I just can't physically do it. I am not tired of working. I'm not tired of people. Hopefully that gives you an idea of who I am. And that's kind of the way the videos have been falling out. Sometimes we don't have enough time to do the videos because there's not enough daylight. Or the water's running and I can't be stopping to make a video to show you the water's running and turning somebody's house. Sometimes maybe I can. So yes, there are videos on jacking up houses. There are going to be videos in the future. And I've watched other people's videos and learned from them little tricks that we all learn along the way. And we could all share that, man. I mean, everybody talks about AI learning from what we already learned, and then they could. Yeah, it's not really, because now everybody wants to, that's in charge of these big programs, don't want it to know everything. Don't want it to know one side of the subject. And guess what? That kind of puts it into a tailspin, like having no air underneath its wings. Well, I certainly enjoy people. I know that. I think the biggest turn for me was, I think probably in my 40s, I was like, man, this is stressful. You know, I'm wondering if I'm going to get paid. This is, you know, I don't know, why am I doing this? And I had to come up with a different way to think about things, or I wasn't going to make it. I was just going to go work for somebody else. And I did occasionally work for somebody else. My uncle and other people. I worked for the Handyman Connection, which is a franchise also, while my wife was in the hospital. But, you know, she was my wife then, as an ex-wife. So, I read a book by Zig Ziglar, and he talks about the best way to get more energy from your work is to visualize in your mind, or put it in your mind, that you're benefiting somebody else with your service. If you can do that, then you can get more energy from it. And he's right. He's right. So I tell myself, it's my job to make other people's lives better. And that's what I tell my workers. When you smash fingers, you want to square and cut and throw things around. You need to understand that you're not making their lives better by doing that. You're actually making them irritated and worried and scared, whatever. You need to be focused on making their lives better. So that makes you be a more understanding person. It makes you listen to them and do it the way they want to do it, unless it's not safe. You provide, I have to learn to provide lots of information, and sometimes things like it seems as though I'm providing too much information. And I don't get complaints. I just have women say, you're overloading me with information. Just wanted to know if you knew what you were doing. And I give them these choices, and they say, well, what would you do? I respect that, but it's still my responsibility to give you the choices, to let you know there are choices. And it's not just my way. I'm here to make your life feel better. And whether I accomplish that or not, that's my goal. It is not to make a bunch of money off of you without actually doing much work. I think that because since the 60s, we told all our kids to go to college and get that office job and da-da-da-da. We've been doing that more and more until there's virtually nobody that's learning the trades. And people that did know the trades are dying. Or they're old enough, they don't want to work anymore. I hear from plumbers, even on YouTube, they're talking about plumbing has got, it only lasts so long, you know. So like copper is only going to last so long. If you go back to sewer pipes and such, they're cast iron. Actually replace them in a motel. The last of the motel house, the building was made in the 70s, early 70s. They had cast iron pipes for sewer. They only last so long, they start getting rusty real bad, and catching toilet paper on the inside, and cracking, things like that. They're not good for movement. So everything wears out eventually. So the plumbers are saying, we're buying houses with our extra money. By the way, plumbers in the West Coast are making $200,000 a year. Imagine that. And then we're telling our kids to go be a programmer where they might make $60,000 a year or less, or might not get a job, might be fired because we don't need you no more. We got a computer program to do what you did. Anyway, $200,000 a year. My son quit working with me to work for a company up near Seattle, Bellevue, and he's making $35 an hour. He was working for Walmart in the headquarters. Imagine that. And he was thinking that was where his career was going to be. He's putting money in his 401k, all that stuff, and then they let him go. Imagine because his last name started with a B or something like that. A's and B's go. They don't care who you are. There's a big corporation that really doesn't lumbering around and doesn't have time to look after you. So now he went from, $16 an hour or $15 an hour to 35 in less than a year. He's on the fast track. Why? Because he left that easy job that everybody taught the kids to go get, and he's in air conditioning, which is really my life. An easy job. It's somewhat stressful, but not much. But he's learning all those electrical things that he needs to know, the electronics, the freon levels, and plumbing and things, and how to sweat copper pipes. He's doing all that. We are changing as a world. There are not enough people. Very few nations are having enough children to replace the people that are dying. There's a video that's half of the documentary, and that's all you need to see, really, called Birth Gap, and it will show you the statistics that you need to know. And another guy, Peter Zion, he talks about that kind of thing. We do not have enough people trained because telling all these kids to go to college. We do not have enough people trained to take on all these things. So these YouTube videos are going to be a lifesaver for some of us that are trying to work on their own house. And think about that. If a plumber's saying these houses are 40, 50 years old, we're buying them, we're having to do all the plumbing, and we're finding we don't have enough, we can't find enough people to hire to do it for ourselves. We're the plumber company. We can't find people to do it. It's the same with well drillers. It's the same with electricians. I talked to an electrician just a couple of weeks ago, and he's a young guy, 30-something, and nobody wants to work. I was like, man, it ain't because nobody wants to work. Because they can work making solid money, making coffee, $8 cups of coffee, making $17 to $20 an hour, or dig a ditch for $20 an hour in the weather. I don't blame them for taking on the easier job that pays maybe more. So we're going to have to help each other because there's not going to be enough people to fix all the things that are needed to be fixed. And I think all those people that are like, I'm reading, we're seeing a lot about BlackRock and State Street and all these huge corporations that own stock for each other. They all control all these master big companies, control all that money. The reality is, you still got to have an electrician. You still got to have a plumber. Remember a story that I heard on the news. This they did some hackers shut down the gasoline lines, fuel lines, oil lines, and nobody could get gas on the East Coast somewhere. And they were home hustling until you paid them. And they were doing it remotely. Anyway, a gas station had just enough gas, they figured, just for their family, so they weren't selling to nobody else. The plumber pulls up, and he goes, I'll do the work, but you're going to have to give me some of the gas. They said, no. He said, well, fine, I'll just pack my stuff up and go. They gave him some gas. So, if you think about all the post-apocalyptic situation. The guy who's always got power is the guy who can fix things. So we need to pick up this knowledge and share this knowledge with one another. Get the skills, get the tools. You don't have to have them all, just a basic set of tools. Maybe I'll do a video on what tools I think you need. And start learning to do things. Because there's not going to be enough people in the trades, and you might not be able to afford them. Isn't that funny? I will tell you, the price to buy an air conditioner right now is still around $3,000 to $4,000 for a 3-ton air conditioner. And it's now about $10,000, $7,000 to $10,000 to $12,000 to install one. Why does it cost $7,000 to put in an air conditioner? It takes about a day. Somebody's making money, and why? Because there's not enough competition. There was plenty of people doing it. That price would be competitive. It would be cheaper and cheaper because there's plenty of people doing it. You see what I'm talking about? Hopefully I'm not talking on too much. My wife, I told her, hey, what do you want me to talk about today? And she says, it doesn't matter what I tell you, you can talk about it. So yes, I can be on what the way to be along with it. But what I'm actually doing this for is if people want to talk directly to me, they can. And they can ask questions, and we can all benefit from the questions and hopefully from the answers. But myself, I can also just talk about what I know in particular subjects and share with you that information. And I hope I'm not irritating along the way. And I think we're getting better and better at setting up the live stream. We have lots of issues along the way, and hopefully this is one that's not that way. All right, guys, I'm going to say goodbye. Remember to let us know. You can ask questions. You don't have to do it while we're doing the live stream. You can just ask questions, and we'll try to answer them. Yeah, maybe I'll have to do some research. It's such a good question. But you're dealing with somebody who's now 62 and seen a lot of things, had a lot of knowledge. Be happy to share with you what I know. Until next time, see you later.